classified network. It was quite chaotic, and helping to bring order to that was a real challenge and a great learning experience. And it was my privilege to be part of that. And Richard and I worked together for the 4 or so years that he was there in those areas. And I'd like to say it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't always a lot of fun. But it was certainly meaningful and important work. And then I've had the opportunity in the last couple of years to serve as the CIO at ICE, and it's a fabulous job. It's the best job I've had in 38 years of government service, and I just couldn't be happier to be where I'm at. It's an organization that has increasing clarity of mission, certainly vis-a-vis current administration policies, and it is large enough where you feel as though when you've made changes, you've really made a difference, and small enough to where you can actually affect the changes in a normal human lifespan. So it's been a great run, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and chat with all of you.
So Mike, let's go to this issue of moving forward now with your top 2 or 3 priorities as the CIO of ICE.
Well, sure. I mean, classically, we need to deliver faster, more reliably, and at lower cost. And that equates on kind of a technical basis to things like infrastructure as software. It equates to agile software development and DevOps and cloud services, and those are sort of 4 technical tangents that we're pursuing. We also have a need to kind of restructure a lot of what we're doing in network services, and that goes across DHS. Here we are in a cloud, increasingly cloud-enabled world, and we don't have the cloud-enabled network capabilities, and so that is one of our priorities. Data analytics is a big deal at ICE. It's a big deal everywhere, I would expect, but I will tell you that our Homeland Security Investigations business unit just eats that stuff up. Their mission is so much enabled by, analyzing data. They are, while they certainly do surveillance, I mean, they are not out, sitting in cars drinking cold coffee in the middle of the night, breaking down transnational criminal organizations. A lot of that is analyzing, vast reams of data across international boundaries, and they just suck up data analytics like crazy. And I would love to find a way to deliver that at more industrial scale as opposed to sort of pocket by pocket, business unit by business unit. And then, the perennial favorites, right? Tech refresh, where, we can't put hardware out in the field as fast as we outgrow it with either the security stack or software. And cybersecurity is, always a pressing favorite in terms of priority.
Okay, well, we'll dig into more some of those details. Okay, Russ, same question.
All right, so I always start with the agency that I work for, the mission. When you walk into my office on my big board, and I try not to keep a lot of things on the board, on the top it says, we are a counterterrorism organization. Right at the top, and it's underlined. So every season, I make sure there's a lot of distance between that and everything else I heard. The mission at TSA is serving 2.2 million Americans every single day at the airports. So, we're the face of government. You see TSA, you don't see a lot of great articles about TSA, but we do a fantastic job out there. It's very, very hard, the staff. And so my number one mission to support them is always stability. Stability out there. I've got 650 locations worldwide, all the airports that you go to, all that equipment that you lay your eyes on, and all the stuff that's in the back offices, we're responsible for delivering that. If JFK loses the terminal and they're out, if secure flight is down for 2 seconds, the airlines light us up. So that stability is critical. So I look at that as the number one priority, deliver that each and every day. The funny story about that is you get a new administrator, he comes in, and we have an NDM crash. And for 2 weeks, we can't get email when there's hurricanes hit. We get it, but it's not, so you've got that. You have an opportunity to lead through a crisis for us, who's a very stable organization when you're having problems delivering to your deputy administrator, your administrator, your federal security directors out in the field. So you can never overemphasize the importance of stability before you go and monitor. The next thing is obviously cybersecurity. Confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of that data is so critical. I've got, probably most of you have TSA pre-check. Most of you, many of you, everybody who's applied for a job at TSA, everybody who has a job at TSA, everybody who left, The OPM breach is just a reminder of how important it is to not lose that data. So that's critical. We're decent at it, but you go to bed at night wondering, if they really want us, they could probably get us. So the cybersecurity piece, we work very, very hard at that. We're all a team across the department. Some are better at certain things, and to work on that. That's my second. And the next piece is the modernization piece. When I say the cloud movement that we're working at, it's really doing the cloud smartly. We've got an IATO, we're moving into some clouds, we're doing some testing and development. You got an ATO probably 2 months away, but what is it we're going to have at the end of the day? Infrastructure as a service, maybe SaaS is probably is one of the bright lights at the end of the hill that I believe is out there. Delivering and ability to deliver speed, to get that stuff delivered out in the field securely, and take away from our long development cycles that we have. I've got a number of other priorities, but you said 2 or 3.
We keep going.
So the budget. So we've got industry out here, budgets are difficult, right? They keep slashing my budget by $40 million, right? So you play a little bit of games there with the $40 million, you get the money, you get the money back. But we've now hit almost to the tipping point where you've got to be concerned. I'm fortunate with TSA when I say I've got a cybersecurity issue and I need money. I explain to them what happens if I don't have it. And very fortunate. Some of the components aren't as fortunate as we are. But as you get towards the end of the year and no one has money, we've got a new training academy and all that. From the IT perspective, and industry can always help. You want to be looking not this year or next year. You got to look 5, 6, 7 years out. I don't know what I just did my refresh. What's the next kind of compute I'm going to have on these desks for folks? It's probably not going to look like what I have. Probably not. I go out and benchmark with Microsoft and Apple and all those folks. And the beautiful thing about being in Homeland Security, they'll meet with you. You'll get the CIOs and their chief technology officers to meet with you. I say, how are you doing mobile management? How are you doing these things? They give us ideas. Maybe we can't implement all of them. But that's critical to go out there and figure out what the cutting edge is and what is manageable in your agency.
Well stated. Let me just say something about TSA. I mean, I think TSA and probably the IRS, one of my other favorite agencies because I work there, these are the agencies that the public loves to hate, right? And I want
I don't know
to
what
say,
making a strong player.
well, yeah. But I just wanted to say that I came to admire, all the components, but in particular, the folks at TSA and the mission, and you're right, the counter-terrorism mission that you fight every day. It's very impressive what they do behind the scenes. And I know for those of you in the contractor community that support TSA, you know exactly what I mean. So let's dig into this cloud stuff a little bit more. And you guys, both what you're doing specifically around looking at commercial cloud offerings and how you might be moving to that versus private cloud versus maintaining your own infrastructure. And also more generally, government, where do you think we should be going from a cloud perspective? So, Russ, you want to
Okay. All right, so the first thing you look at, there are certainly things, in my opinion, that fit into the public cloud, right? But the vast majority of things that I have are sensitive information about people, sensitive information about processes that we have out there, and I'm concerned about who I'm sharing my hypervisor with. So from my perspective, I put that in the high category for confidentiality, integrity of that data, whether it's by screening machines that are looking for explosives out in the field, or whether it's your pre-check data that's out there that we have. I can't afford to lose that. It'd be a crisis at the agency if you can no longer trust us to secure your data. So after the OPM breach, everything changed. We looked at things that we were considering modern out there. We no longer consider it modern. It's very unpopular for a CIO to say, you know what, you're going to need to go back. You're going to need to spend some more on your security. We're going to need to do things differently because I don't trust going up there. And you usually get to a vote when it's 12 against 1. They say we just need to go. We can't afford the extra money to do that. But at the end of the day, that stuff's got to be secured. So the vast majority of what I'm looking at is FedRAMP certified, high cloud security. That's where I see most of our future, most of our compute, most of our storage in that area, but not looking away, for there are certainly things that fit the commercial cloud area.
Well, we're taking a slightly different tack. We're aggressively embracing cloud services. we're very much focused on government community cloud. We've established a target environment for all of our systems at Amazon and Azure in the government community cloud, and we're very comfortable with moving our systems into that environment. And in fact, we have a fair footprint in the cloud by virtue of either software as a service or other things. Our investigative case management system, which is a high confidentiality, high integrity system, sits at Amazon's government community cloud and Palantir's virtual private cloud, and we were able to put a solid check mark against all of the necessary controls, and we're pretty thoroughly examined. And in fact, as we get into cybersecurity, I will tell you that there are increasing numbers of elements that look at us. And in the case of that particular program, DHS Science and Technology took a very in-depth review and pen test, and we came up in a good way on that. And I will also point out, and I suspect that there are DXC and CSRA folks in the room somewhere, but our enterprise data centers, they're on their second generation contracts. There's kind of an inevitable end of that and some uncertainty around that, and we have to plan for that. And I think the way to plan for that is to plan to move things into the cloud. We have our detainee health records in a cloud service through a software as a service circumstance. We have our IT service management capability vis-a-vis ServiceNow in the cloud via software as a service. We just continue to push into that front. I will tell you where we struggle is the connectivity piece. Figuring out what our laydown needed to be in the cloud, figuring out the tools that we wanted to use was much easier than the connectivity piece, and that has been the struggle. We have, myself in particular, worked very hard to build networks that sort of assumed a lot of things were going to be on premise, and now that's not the case.
And let me ask, the support from procurement in particular and finance, and I mean, we always talk about the different part of government, the different model, and the way you plan for this in the budget and the like. Can you give a comment on how that's gone and some of the barriers? And it sounds like you, particularly Mike, you made a lot of progress with some of those things.
Well, I don't know that money or finance has been the principal problem with moving into those arenas. We were modernizing our investigative case management, and the timing was right to acquire software as a service through Palantir and end up at Amazon's cloud. In the case of our detainee health records, that was a service that's widely used both in detention and other circumstances. It's a clinical works product. So I think it was just sort of timing of where we were with various modernization initiatives. I will say that I think you can get things to the cloud faster and less expensive than most people might consider, because you're not having to build out all of this infrastructure the way we traditionally did. You don't have to capitalize the same way. You can start with a very small laydown and incrementally grow as you need to. It doesn't make getting some of our old mainframe AIX legacies into the cloud any easier, but there is a lot of mileage to be made at relatively low cost.
So from an acquisition perspective, when you start this, first thing the acquisition folks, what are your deliverables? You have to have a very agile process if you've got to define everything out and lay it out. So we brought them in, made sure they were part of the training, because if we don't cloud train the acquisition team, we're not going to get that momentum. And we did that. We've been very successful in both of the clouds you mentioned, Mike. We're both working in both of those. And we as more coming on FedRAMP, we won't be in every cloud. We just don't have the people and the infrastructure to be in every cloud that's out there. So we're going to have to limit where we are. Certainly not going to be 2 or 3 clouds. It'll be more than that. But I don't know that we're going to be in 10 or 15 clouds. It doesn't make sense. So with the acquisition force, the first time I wrote a memo that says we're going to limit competition, we're going to be in these 2 clouds, and don't go out and get some shadow IT in a cloud that I don't know about that I can't put an ATO around. That's the first concern, and that was out there. Right? And as soon as we started to plug in the C, we found that we were in more clouds than we thought. So I'm in more than a couple clouds. to my, concerned about that, right? Usually some small things, some things in Vegas, some things that I've got to figure out how we manage. But moving forward, right, the value that I see clearly is in development and testing. There's libraries that do things, right? Not to be building my own code everywhere we have. That's the first thing. And now where we go for SaaS and infrastructure as a service, we're still looking. We're not completely the experts yet on security in the cloud. As Mike said, they do a lot of that for you. A year and a half, 2 years ago, we were all saying, we're not sure how secure these clouds are. Well, now we're pretty comfortable with the security in the cloud. We've got to, my cyber guys want to see every log. Well, we may not get there. There may be some different, and the tools that are always coming out are different. But the opportunities there are fantastic. Now, will I ever move secure flight into the cloud? I don't know. Right? My crown jewels I may like to have complete control over those things, as I have now active on both sides of the Mason-Dixon line. I want to have that diversity and control of that. But that may change. That may change. I may have a different perspective in 2 years if I'm still around. But that's where I see it.
Go on in, the water's fine.
Go on in. Some of the water's not so fine.
Well, both of you, not surprising, have touched upon cybersecurity, right? And I think many of us were pretty impressed with the executive order that the president issued. But it also had a longer list of if you will, action items for agencies. And I'd be interested to know how that's going from your guys' perspective, and being able to both respond and the value you see. And I think it's really good that the president said, hey, if you're the head of an agency, you're responsible. You're on the line here. I think that's really good because it does really get senior management attention. So how's that going from the perspective of not maybe the technical perspective, but more the process and the cultural issues that we face with cybersecurity in the past?
So one of the best meetings, one of the most productive meetings I've been in is the Secretary Johnson at the time called every CFO, every CIO in the department, and the head of the agency into his conference room. We're all sitting around a table. I've never seen all these folks together at the same time. And he said, let me make this perfectly clear. I think it was a 10-minute discussion. And then out he walked. He said, don't buy helicopters. Don't buy another boat until you get all this stuff that's end of life, end of service. You need to address these problems. Get your cybersecurity in-house. DHS, we're responsible for cybersecurity. We need to do a better job. We left that meeting. I know for TSA it's a little, our relationship is pretty well set up. But after that meeting, it made my job a lot easier working with the rest of the folks in the agency to make sure that cybersecurity was not just a word they heard about, right? And even when everybody's records were stolen, it really didn't hit some people at home what that meant and what that meant to us as a department and the TSA. After that meeting, it was very clear. We laid plans out. Those things went straight up to the top of the chain. Things were executed. They were generally interested in every quarter. The CIO from the department sits down with each component. We walk through our scorecard of where we are, and that's not the end all, but we talk about all the other challenges that we have, and that really works well.
Well, Russ stole a lot of the same thoughts that I had, so clearly it is very good to see the new administration come in and place a focus on cybersecurity right away, and the executive order speaks to a good framework for approaching that. But particularly for those of us in DHS, where we have kind of a unique role in government relative to cybersecurity, the last administration was pretty well on top of that too. And I was in that same meeting that Russ refers to, and it was one of those secretary to the rest of us, I'm watching you, and you need to be on cybersecurity. And I kind of made a list of the things that represent the oversight that goes on in cybersecurity. So let me reference that here. Let's see. So, and Russ hit some of those. So we've got a monthly scorecard that the department produces for us, and it's based on technical data that we're submitting. It's based on scan data and other things. It's not entirely about your FISMA compliance. It's a real technical scorecard. We have a quarterly review, and Russ alluded to this. It's with the Deputy Undersecretary for the department, our Chief Operating Officer, myself, and There's not a lot of, way to obfuscate that stuff. They're looking at the same data, so they know what we're doing. We have an annual penetration test that NPPD conducts against the components. So, kind of have this whole red team thing going on once a year. I mentioned earlier, science and technology has now been empowered to do sort of programmatic pen testing and cybersecurity examinations. So as you ramp up new major programs, certainly level 2, level 1 programs, you're going to get science and technology looking at your cybersecurity. And then increasingly, the annual FISCAM audits, the annual financial audits, are very tuned in to cybersecurity for the financial system. So, the NFRs that we're getting for those are, increasingly about cybersecurity, and the IT NFRs are increasingly, making all the other ones seem much smaller by comparison. And then, the last thing on my list was, we're getting a lot of directive guidance from DHS headquarters down to the components about how we will formulate our budgets to ensure that we are spending money the right way on cybersecurity. So, there's no place to hide. We have to be on this, whether we want to be or not. And of course, we all want to be. But I will say that the oversight is significant, and it's effective, and it's pragmatic.
Very good. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm turning it over to you, the audience, to, I'm sure many of you have questions for the gentleman. So my last question for you is really around this issue. Everybody talks about Agile, right? And Agile management, development, DevOps, the whole thing. But I'd really be interested, how, again, that's a cultural shift, and it's a mindset shift, and it's a contractual shift. And how would you rate your organizations on how you're doing in making that shift?
Okay. All right.
I'm going to have a better grade. This is how it works.
We're in the water. We started this probably 18 months ago with the idea of Agile and in the agency with something just as simple as a lot of our development was we were quarterly releases. And if you look at something like Secure Flight, which is very intelligence driven, and something happens, we make changes in the system to do certain things, to look for certain things, to identify certain things, and releasing that every quarter. While we're high and tight, and when we release it, it's pretty effective and it works. It's not agile enough. When we lost a couple of planes overseas, when they disappeared, right? We had concerns that they were stolen passports and things like that. So that gets moved. What we have is, we call it a pipeline, right, for a lot of our programs. And we lay it in there, and if you're paying my office to get something done, and I am those things, we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about, we would do it every week with Secure Flight. We'd say, here's what your priorities are. What's changed? Right? And then they would really be able to impact something maybe 6 weeks down the road, because the last 6 or 8 weeks was kind of locked in. But we would move it, and that would bump things to the right. So while we were delivering, I don't know if it was good enough. It was good enough at the time because we've been done for years. We weren't agile in any way, shape, or form. So the first thing we said is, all right, we're going to go to 8-week release cycles. And the balloon went up, and oh my gosh, this is impossible. Because those folks, when they put something out, and every airline, and every passenger that's flying is getting checked multiple times, with real time. If something changes because of Abu Dhabi, if somebody reports something, I need to have that in my system 2 minutes later. I can't wait for a refresh every hour or 2 days. So we put that in place. We forced the hand, and we didn't go to 6 weeks right away. We moved over. In those areas where we could say, let's work on 2 weeks, we did that across the board. At the end of the day, you want to be delivering speed delivery, quality, but also meeting the operational tempo. And it took a little while to do that. We continue to build momentum. We push in each area. What I've got a challenge now is I've got a few different versions of Agile. My business is kind of split in two. I've got the folks who run the mission operations side of Secure Flight and Transportation Vetting that does 35 million transportation workers. And the other side that does the back office stuff, that does your email and does all that, SharePoint and all that kind of stuff. They're they were never together, now they're together, and they do things a little bit differently. So we're taking those areas that, areas of expertise and areas of, the folks that are better at things and trying to share it. But I haven't broken that wall yet. I'm letting them fine tune it, but I think at the end of the day, the question is, do I want one standard across the group, which is likely where I'm going to go? Or do I have a couple? But we're very successful, and it has made a difference, and it didn't break it. Stability continues.
So I'd probably rate us as a C+, maybe a B- in our Agile adoption. So recently we enumerated all of our development teams, and that sounds fairly straightforward. It turned out it wasn't. How many development teams do you have? Well, what's a development team? It took a while to just figure out how we wanted to count ourselves in that regard. And then we assessed all of them, and we've done that iteratively, and we've certainly seen some forward motion. I think Russ landed on a point, what's the right approach for one team might not be the right approach for another team, and so what we found is, many teams will readily embrace and be able to use a Scrum mentality, or Scrum framework, but others are more well-suited to a Kanban, less structured framework, and we've moved along the path. I will also add that we've integrated some training into our environment, so we have recurring intro training, recurring certified Scrum Master training, and probably the most important thing, where I'm now spending more and more energy with our customers, is product owner training. So what we want to do is bring the customers in, make them part of our solution delivery process, as opposed to them sort of launching either stories or requirements at us and waiting for us to deliver. And so embracing the customers through that product owner training is pretty important. We've also embedded some coaching and are beginning to expand that. So again, kind of C+, B-.
Is that just a maturation issue for the organization?
It is. There's a lot of agile fall stuff going on, if you're not careful, where people they're using the right lexicon but not really adhering to the framework. And then there's some sort of negative feedback that goes on relative to programmatic oversight. So major acquisition programs are subject to our Management Directive 102, which you're very familiar with. But that's very much a stage gate approach. And the lexicon and the oversight and just the way people view the programs are very different from, say, a well-viewed agile practitioner and somebody coming out of the Army, for example. And we spend a lot of time trying to get the Hatfields and the McCoys lined up on that. And we're getting there. The next leap for us will be to get some DevOps Sec stuff going on, and I hope you guys caught that I said DevOps Sec. And the way to go faster, in my mind, is those three elements of an IT shop: the solution delivery, the operations, and security. They have to be stitched together very tightly. And I've seen typically solutions delivery type organizations and ops can get stitched together tightly, and security is the outlier. And they have to come together. And we have what I would call a nascent DevOps Sec pipeline. We've built one small product with it, and all three of those entities have their equities in that. But we're not at the point of grades on that one. We're kind of at the just attendance at that point, as opposed to an actual letter grade.
So Mike, would you say C+, B-? So we're clearly a D. One thing that's clear there is that they get better over time. You've got to, number one, have the right people in there for Agile to work, and you can paint it any way. But we've seen month after month, they get better and better. You get the right team in there, and they've got to gel, just like Mike said. The other thing is, when we're talking about our Agile, when we sit down with the groups and make sure the customer, it's critical that you have the customer's commitment to do that, and that takes a little work on the executives' part to make sure they're really in. But when you sit down in a meeting with 5 or 10 different teams, and you have the customer in there, and they brief me, they have to put it up on the screen. It has to be a live demo. And it makes all the difference. I'm not interested in a PowerPoint. I want to see, what did you do since the last 2 or 3 weeks since I've been here? What do you have? And they shine. You know, and the other thing is, what I've always said is the contractors and the federal, we're a family together. It's not us and them. So you get in that room, you take that barrier down, because we're not going to succeed without them and vice versa. You got strengths and weaknesses. But when a team can put up what they've done, and they show myself and the deputy what they've done, they put it up there. Sometimes it doesn't work because of the connection. It's really powerful. And so I brought a few of the other folks at my level in to come and see that. They have no idea that it's going on. They have no idea that we fixed 16 of their staff, you know, problems that would before taking 200 hours to do, that now take as fast as it can load in 30 seconds. And they said last week it took 2 minutes, and now it's 30 seconds. And then there's competition amongst the teams, and it's really powerful.
You know, Russ, you were on to something there in my mind. You know, we are trying to embrace these new frameworks, these new approaches. We do want to deliver much faster than we are. But you know, I'm not sure the credit is given to how fast we often do deliver. In our organization, we put out 272 product releases in 11 months of FY17, and I'm sure Russ has done the same thing. CDP would probably have almost one order of magnitude more, would be my guess. You know, we are producing a lot of product at a high rate of speed now, making that more structured in terms of that high rate of speed, and really getting to the point where it's like you know, like your phone, where you're seeing a little icon says you got to update the app, you know, 3 times a day. I mean, that's what we want to do, but you know, it's not all bad. We're cranking out real product at a fairly high rate of speed.
I'd say you're pretty hard grade on yourself, given what I just heard. So now we're going to switch to you guys asking questions. We do have line with mics, and so please raise your hand. Well, yes. And can you introduce yourself?
Hello. Hey there. I'm Diane Ashley with Accenture. Thank you, gentlemen. Great panel. And Mike, when you're talking about your background in IT, you said sometimes it's no fun. I climbed a mountain once with those silly thing that I did, but the guy that we had said, he climbed all these mountains, and he said, you know what, it doesn't have to be fun to be fun. So there you go.
Oh, I'm not sure that would have worked for me a few years back.
Are you setting us up?
So just say that to people, you know what, this is fun, he said, even though it's not fun. And Russ, I had a question for you, so I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned. You were talking about the acquisition workforce and training them around cloud. My question is around, in your world, right, in the CIO mission IT space, there's got to be a healthy tension with acquisitions in the contract shop, right? And that's good. I feel like sometimes it gets out of balance, and sometimes that has to get pulled back in, and maybe there's a push and pull. I'm just curious of your perspective, if you talk about all the things you want to do, how much are they helping, and how much are you having to push back, and are there things that industry can do to help or to highlight or to be aware of in that space?
Well, one of the things that I've done is when I go to look at these Amazons, I go to these places, I bring the lead acquisition person with me. So when you come back, you can't say I don't understand, and you can't say it doesn't work, right? So we partner with them. We're not perfect, as you know, across the board, and acquisition sometimes is very hard. Depends on what it is. You gotta, at the end of the day, if it's not illegal, right, and we can identify our requirements and not, that's the game, you kick the requirements back and forth. This is what we do. If you make them a partner with them, it's hard for them to say no. We've got great acquisition folks at TSA. Some of the things we ask them to do are hard, and they're new tricks we're teaching. And that training is essential because you can't get past, well, what's the deliverable? What are they going to build and when are they going to deliver? Well, that's not agile, right? And it's hard to really define that. And you don't know until you get going. And what I would say is, you know, what I can deliver in 4 months is going to be different 6 months from now, you know, depending on the team. Some teams are quicker than others. But you got to engage them, and also you can't take no for an answer sometimes.
We have one other thing.
Good afternoon, Gail Lasseroff with Pluralsight. So can you share your comments on how you're upskilling your workforce to support these initiatives that you want to address for the new fiscal year, and how you're going to close the technology skill gaps that you see?
Is that for both of us, or?
Yes.
You want to start?
I'll take a shot. Well, certainly we've embraced internal training around the agile methodology that I mentioned earlier. And that's iterative. We're trying to include as many people as we can. We in the government took a very strong focus for a long time around project management and program management, and that wasn't inappropriate, but we walked away from some of the technical skills of doing that. And we're having to bring that back and emphasize that. That goes to recruitment. It does go to making training available for people. I find both in my previous job and in this job that we leave training opportunities on the table every year. We really don't get people to training as often as we should. We don't always execute all of the training money that we have. And so it's about a focus on that. So hopefully that is in the right zone.
Yeah, so for us, I think yesterday or the day before, we held a big DevOps day, and that's not just for vendors to be part of it, it's also staff at TSA to come out, regardless of understanding what's going on, what's DevSecOps, what does that mean to you, and because we got to get that out. But the other thing is with training, we've got workforces that aren't going to be doing the same thing 2 years from now, maybe 6 months from now, a year from now, than what they're doing now. So we could bring them the water, right? We'll show them opportunities, and everybody's plan that they have each year, we're getting ready to lay out the next one, is classes you need to take for not just what you're doing now, but where we're going to be a couple of years from now. That's a start. So you lead them the water, and sometimes you got to make the break. So you're gonna have classes where they need to go, you need to get feedback. So we have been successful at spending all of our training dollars. Because I go to the halfway point, I want at least 75% of my money spent. And we're pretty strategic on what we want done. And you got people who love to train, you got people who would rather go to the dentist than get the training. But you gotta stay on top of it, but most importantly, you gotta have a strategic vision for where those groups are. How do you divide your organization? For us, it's divisions. What they need to do, and then also cross-train them out of what they're doing, so they have an understanding. If they're security folks, I want to have them understand what the developers are doing.
Over there, back.
Hi, Mark Ettridge, NCI. Just to continue to push that technology envelope further than you've been discussing, where do you see the impacts of artificial intelligence, specifically machine learning, in your current technology stack? So as you move to the cloud, as you're building your DevOps organization, where do you see that particular technology impacting your workforce as well as the systems and applications you're supporting?
Start? All right, so AI, I see AI opportunities everywhere. My son is a junior at Ohio State in computer science and engineering. I said, you better get some AI in your background. Get some cyber, which he doesn't want, but he needs to get not pay next year. But we have a brand new administrator. One of the things we went through last week is what's the art of the problem? What's the big change? We're getting ready to have an offsite. What would you want to tell him? How do we move TSA a big step forward? How do we move from being the same thing we are? We have big incremental improvement. What do you do? One of them is artificial intelligence. As an opportunity. Now you got to be able to do it at scale. You got to be able to afford it, right? But if you can imagine, ATF has every weapon, from every country, and they have it broken down into every component. Well, AI right now, the intelligence community uses it to look at satellite images to track where mobile launchers are.